Almost from the day it was founded in 1848, the folks across the bay in San Francisco have been making jokes about Oakland. There's no there there, poetess Gertrude Stein is supposed to have said. Well, the jokes may live on, but Oakland is no longer that faceless other city across the bay. Today, California's fourth largest city is a booming center of industry, commerce, art, and culture. But Oakland's new glamour and prosperity are not shared equally by all of its citizens. Nearly half of the city's population is non-white, and many are poor. They do not patronize the symphony or the museum. They don't use the Coliseum or the airport very much, nor do they hold their share of the jobs created by Oakland's new industry, port, and transportation facilities.
Hey you old funky Oakland town. How come you're such a cold and brutal city? And your town marching this posse ain't got no shame, and most of all, they just ain't got no pity.
Most of Oakland's black and brown citizens came here from the South during World War II, lured by recruiters for government and private industry to work in shipyards and defense plants. After the war, the shipyards closed and many factories moved to the suburbs, leaving most non-white workers behind. Technology put still more workers on the unemployment and welfare lines, where they were joined by newly dispossessed farmers and farm workers forced off the land by the growth of agribusiness. During the 50s, Oakland became a stagnant, seething ghetto of impoverished blacks and Chicanos, surrounded by the white affluence of the Oakland Hills and suburban Alameda County. To contain the misery and violence of the ghetto, Oakland's all-white police department earned a reputation for head-knocking brutality that has left a well-remembered legacy of bitterness in the minds and hearts of many who lived in that time and place.
I was growing up in the late 30s and early 40s. At that time, the police department was perceived as brutal, and for the most part, there was extreme fear on the part of black people in West Oakland at that time when the police would ever come into the community. I remember one specific situation where several young blacks were being apprehended by the police, or they went into their homes to pick them up for some alleged crime. And I remember one particular police officer kicking one of the young people who couldn't have been more than 13 or 14 years old.
I
think that the Black Panthers raised a very significant issue, and that was the brutality of the police when they came into the black community.
The police were in the same position as most of government, not being in fact responsive to citizens' needs. In our recruit schools, we inculcated for many years, in my opinion, in our policemen what I would characterize as a gung-ho law enforcement orientation. We taught them laws of arrest, search and seizure, and patrol division, patrol procedure practices, which could only result in an officer oriented in a very narrow law enforcement way. So that as we went about in this police department as an operational style in the 50s and some part of the 60s, of stopping people on various pretexts, and this is a mandate, as it were, from the police department itself, we incurred very, very bad relationships with our community.
Today, there is a whole new relationship developing between the people of Oakland's ghettos and the police. Police officials hold regular meetings in the community, and they are well received.
This is one of the greatest things I've seen in Oakland in my 30 years here. I never thought I'd see today. Back in 47, 48, I could see policemen come and sit down and let you criticize you.
It's our responsibility to get out in that community, and we'll be here if you want us. And I'm here, quite frankly, to assure you that those men that you see sitting here and the men that work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in the Oakland Police Department. We'll be striving to achieve a goal that they're going to take a humanistic approach to policing. I don't care how frustrated our policemen happen to be because they're working hard, or how frustrated the citizen happens to be because he had to wait a long time for the policeman. I want to see every citizen treated with dignity.
I would say that there's been some tremendous change on the part of the police. I think they're moving away from the head-knocking, brutal physical approach and trying to be more public relations oriented, more community relations oriented, and hopefully more sensitive and liberal in their approach to modern law enforcement. And I see some dramatic effects because, as I said, I've been here when the case was juxtaposed in very hard terms.
In a moment, a look at how things are going in Oakland these days between the people and the police.
Run, nigga, run. Black boy, don't you let the sun go down on you this here town. Cause you're gonna go to jail, boy. Or you might wind up getting dropped 6 feet down.
I joined the department in about 1965. It was very different from what it is now. I think we were a lot more aggressive then. I don't much care for the word harassment. I'd say there was a time we were a head-knocking department, yeah.
There are about 700 men in the Oakland Police Department. An overwhelming number are white, and most live in the suburbs, outside the city. Patrolman John Dixon joined the department after a stint with the Coast Guard. He grew up in Hollister, is a family man, and likes his work. To this extent, he is a typical Oakland policeman.
In the past, there was a quota system. It wasn't down on paper, but it did exist. You were expected to write a certain number of citations, and if you were a good policeman, you made a certain number of arrests. The quota system had to result in more aggressive policemen. They had to go out of their way to find certain things, and maybe they went a little far. We were trying to produce numbers in arrests and just about every way. What has happened is that Chief Gain said no more quota system, and there isn't any today. And that's fantastic. We spend more time today talking to people in a lot of situations where they probably would have gone to jail before. And I mean a lot of situations.
Prior to 1968, the mid-1960s at least, the philosophy of the department was to operate basically as a legalistic style of police department. Gradually, through the late 60s and into the early 70s, we began to change style of operation into what is frequently referred to now as a service style of police department.
George Hart is Oakland's new police chief. He assumed leadership of the department in October 1973 when Chief Charles Gain retired after 27 years on the force.
The change came about because it had to come about to be responsive to the community. The community was saying to us, I think, that we want a police organization which services the entire community in a fair and impartial manner. And we want a police organization in which we can have confidence.
First, we'd like to get you to think as well as you can about the way you looked at police work and a way of operating before you even started recruit training.
Oakland's new policing style is a product of an unusual collaboration between the Oakland Police and a group of social scientists. One of these scientists is J. Douglas Grant, former chief of research for the California prison system. Grant and his colleagues had been remarkably successful in helping convicted criminals overcome their own violent behavior through a process of self-study. In 1969, they convinced police officials that by helping violence-prone policemen study their own behavior, they could reverse the upward spiral of violence between the police and the people of Oakland. Former Chief Charles Gain agreed it was worth a try, and they went to work under a grant from the federal government. Today, the self-study process is carried on by the department's conflict management section.
At the time, there was no regard to the quality of the work. It was just, basically a numbers game, and nobody...
One idea that developed early in the self-study process was that of tape recording actual confrontations between Oakland police officers and potentially violent citizens. The recordings have proved invaluable in understanding how to avoid conflict and are now used in training new police officers in the art of discretionary decision-making.
A police officer probably has the broadest powers of discretion in carrying out his functions than any other citizen. So what we're going to do today is sit down and listen to two patrolmen as they intervene in a family dispute. We're not saying that everything that they do in this tape is the right way to do it, but they made certain decisions throughout this tape, and we're going to sit down and critique these bit by bit. This is an actual street incident. These are real policemen and real people. Some individual officers, when they come into the recruit academy, feel that they're coming in to be trained to be the tremendous crime fighter. They don't realize that that's only a portion of their training, how to combat crime. That a lot of it is going to be in how to deal with people, how to solve people's everyday problems, how to meet the everyday problems of the community.
All right, then. Unless you're going to arrest me. If you ain't going to arrest me, man, then I advise you just get on your way.
I would kind of like to talk about it first before we...
Say, look, man, that's my wife. I'm her husband, man. You ain't got nothing to do with it. You understand me? You understand me? You ain't got nothing to do with it.
Down, man.
Don't tell me to cool down, man.
What we're trying to provide or promote is an officer who does his job, does it well, does it efficiently, who does in fact produce, but who at the same time is a very humanistic individual, who understands his community, who understands himself and his department. Okay. He's told you in probably 20 different ways